Good morning, everybody. It's a very rainy day here in Somerset West as we're recording this, and I'm sitting here with Duncan and MacKenzie. And I was so interested to read in this magazine that was put together in 1977. Right. It said after the retirement of Dr. Hawkridge, several months elapsed before the Reverend D. MacKenzie was inducted in 1962. Right. That is 60 years ago. 60 years ago. And listen to this. He was the youngest man to take over the charge at Somerset West. It was also the beginning of new thinking in many ways. And I'll tell you a little bit more about the new thinking just now. But I thought maybe, Duncan, you could share a memory. If you think back to those days, what are one or two things that stand out from the experience?
Yeah, the first thing is the elders. There was an eldership, and the elders were ordained for life, and it was regarded as a status symbol rather than that they were doing something special for the church. So I took a bold step and I told them all to resign, and if they wanted to be part of the church ministry, they could join the church council, and then they must tell me what they want to focus on: the Sunday school, the youth work, pastoral visitation, hospital visitation. And I said, I want you to have a focus, so that you, with God's help, are putting all your energy into a specific area of need in the church community and in the wider community.
Goodness, that must have gone down like a lead balloon with some of them, eh?
And some of them just left, and others joined the council and were happy to fit in with my ideas. And my early to focus firstly on, I noticed when the Sunday school was on, the fathers would sit in their cars and read the newspaper. So I bought a beautiful slate, quarter-size snooker table, put it in the front room, and I invited these guys to come and challenge me to a game of snooker. And that helped them to get to know me as a person. Yes. And not a dog collar.
Yes.
And they got to know each other, and it was a positive, rewarding activity. And the other thing was in the youth work, we had an elder. One of the senior elders in our church lived in Eldon.
Yes.
Had a big apple farm there. And he had a company, Murray and Roberts, and he was a director. And they had a property out on the edge of the Simonsberg mountain.
Yes.
And it had a vineyard on both sides, but in the top there was a pine plantation that was of no particular economic value, and so I got him to buy that property, gave the church first option to purchase it, and it was going for £15,000.
Goodness.
And so I then had to raise the money. We had a month to raise the money, and I went to one of our wealthy widows living in Main Street in a little flat above the bank, and I asked her if she could give £2,500, and she agreed immediately. And I went to our doctor, Dr. Smith, and he had children in the youth work, and he also agreed to give the same amount. And I was moderator of the presbytery in Cape Town.
Yes.
And one of my responsibilities was to fly up to Ronimont. We had a little outstation there. 2 elders were there ministering to the local community. And I went up and told them about this youth site that he wanted to buy, and the one guy, I've forgotten their names, challenged the other and said, "I'll give £2,500 if you do the same." So they both gave the same.
Wow.
And,
actually, the one was challenged to double it.
Sure. Yes.
maybe to double it.
Fantastic.
So I managed to raise all the money in the time, and so we bought the youth site and called it the Simonsburg Youth
Yes.
Youth Centre.
Yes.
And we there was a contractor, member of our church, who was who had a huge D9 bulldozer.
Uh-huh.
And between jobs, I asked him if he could make it available, and he literally plowed the roadway through the plantation, knocking down trees, cutting into the bank, and made a road through the plantation up to the top.
Fantastic.
And so the youth were then challenged. We bought 2 chainsaws, and we got the youngsters to go there and chop down the bushes and the bigger trees, and
It was
made
lovely.
an access up to the top.
Yes. Well, I can
See
tell
the
you,
teenagers
getting involved.
Yeah.
I can tell you that as a child in the 70s, every Sunday school picnic
Right.
and twice a year youth camps and so on,
Yeah.
we went to Simonsburg.
That's right.
And I can remember the time when there was no buildings there.
That's right.
In fact, they'd thrown a slab,
Yes.
and the slab was there, and we had big pots. You know, they used to make the food in big pots, but we were in tents
Okay.
because there was just an ablution block
Right.
and nothing else. And that conference center campsite has been used unbelievably, you know, over the years. And just recently, I heard that they've received a grant from the Motsepe, the Patrice Motsepe Foundation, to do some extra renovation and building and so on there. But I want to tell you, I don't want to forget. That's right, yes, yes.
Looking after the place.
But I don't want to leave this off this video clip, because this to me was the most precious thing. When you arrived, the 2 of you, it was a time of innovation as far as Minister Stipend was concerned, and they purchased a Morris 1000.
That's right.
And so that the minister, and I quote, was able to move around more freely and easily. I guess Dr. Hawkridge was on the bus, I don't know. How did he get around, a bicycle or what was it? But the Morris 1000 was the first car that was purchased for the minister's use here at, and there were 342 members on the roll at that time.
Right.
But Anne, tell us about the ladies. What was the Women's Fellowship like, and what kind of innovations came in those years?
Okay, you're talking about the younger group after? It was lovely in that, in a way, we rebelled against the set form of the WA that
Yes.
we so long.
Yes.
And we got together to share Bible studies, stories, and so forth, with our children around.
So the children came
And
with.
the children,
Yes.
the younger ones,
Yes,
not yet
of
at
course.
school. Yes. And it was great in that we started little groups who were doing needlework to benefit some society.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Okay.
Where we felt that whatever we were doing, it must reach the community.
Yes.
It must be given out.
And it was a lot more informal than the very staunch Women's Association structure, wasn't it?
Very
Yes.
definitely.
And they called it the Young Wives Fellowship.
Oh, great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's fantastic. I think probably run out of time, but 60 years ago,
Right.
the two of you came here, and you must have been in your 20s
That's right.
at that time,
Yeah.
and such innovation in the 60s, which was quite a conservative time in the Presbyterian Church.
Right.
Yes.
Joy, I must tell you about a little boy who lived across the road from the church.
Yes.
And I was going to visit his mother to ask if he could join the Sunday school.
Yes.
And so he walked with me, and then he ran ahead and he opened the door and he said, Mommy, Mommy, it's God in the box.
Oh, well, there you go. God in the box. I wonder where that little boy is today. Well, thank you so much for sharing the stories with me. I think as we celebrate our 95th anniversary as a congregation, it's important to to look back and give thanks to God for all that has come before. So thank you very much.
Thank you, George.
Thank you, George.
Bless you.